What if I told you there was a number that could save you thousands of dollars in interest over the course of your lifetime? You want to know what that number is? It's your credit score. I'm going to teach you how to get there and maintain it. Let's go. Generally speaking, there's about 4 different pillars that you need to master in order to build and maintain good credit. Before we go into that though, let's just talk about why it's important to have credit and especially good credit and how that can affect you. So obviously the main reason for having credit is so that you can borrow funds. This is going to be helpful for maybe purchasing or financing a car, getting a house, even just getting a rental agreement for a place to live if you're going to rent. These are all things that you're going to need credit for, and they're things that people will look for when they're going to loan you money. That's pretty self-explanatory. People want to see if you're able to pay, if you're going to pay, and what sort of history you've had in the past before they're going to lend you some money or let you into their home. But what does it really mean to have a good score? How can that help you? Well, there's a different range between scores. Obviously, a lower score is going to be worse for you in terms of getting an approval on something that you're wanting. However, there are other implications, such as the rate that you will receive. For example, let's say that there's 2 people that are going to finance a car. If the first person has a credit score of 600 and the second person has a credit score of 800, it is extremely likely that the first person with the lower credit score is going to get the higher interest rate, where the second person with the higher credit score is going to get a lower interest rate. Now, this is a true story, happened to me about 6 years ago or so. I went to finance a vehicle, and at the time, it made sense for me to finance instead of purchasing outright because the rates were lower. And because my credit score was so high, I actually had a back and forth between some of the Canadian banks who were wanting to loan me the money at a cheaper rate. Eventually, I chose one institution that gave me a rate of just 4%. So I ended up doing that because 4% is quite a low rate. I mean, it makes no sense for me to put my hard-earned cash down. I might as well keep that cash in my investments where I'm more than likely going to earn more than 4% over the long term. So that's just this little story to show you how having a higher credit score can actually be beneficial by bringing down your rate of interest and thus saving you money in the long run. Now, this doesn't just apply to financing automobiles. It can apply to rent, for example. There are a lot of landlords who may decrease the amount of rent on a monthly basis if your credit score is higher. The reason for that is simple. As a landlord, your main priority is always to reduce your risk. The last thing you want is for someone to come into your home, destroy the house, not pay you any money, and then you're just in deep trouble as a landlord. However, if you can find someone with a great credit history, a good credit score, then it makes sense for the landlord to bring down the rent just a little bit for those specific people so that the landlord can sleep easier at night knowing that, hey, maybe they gave $50 or $100 off per month, but it's very likely that the person that they have is going to pay on time, continue to pay in full, and likely is not going to give you any issues with making those payments. Likewise, that can go into other things, not just with auto loans, but for mortgages, personal loans, those types of things can also be impacted as well. Now, mortgages generally have a certain type of system or form that they have to follow. So there's very little wiggle room in terms of mortgages. but there are still some institutions that will provide lower rates. So they can discount that rate to you based on many things. Credit score is one of them. Maybe your relationship with that institution, if you're a long-standing client or if you hold other assets with them. Those are definitely some other things that can get you a discounted rate. But obviously having a higher credit score is always going to work in your favor. So it definitely does pay to make sure that your credit is well maintained and you keep that score high. So let's get into the first pillar to help you build that credit and maintain that high score. So the first thing you want to do, if you don't have any credit, if you're a newcomer to Canada, or if you're a student, or you just never got around to it yet, there's a few ways you can go about building credit. One of them, most notably, is probably something that most people are doing. That would be to have a cell phone. So if you're a student or you're on a family plan, maybe your parents are paying for you, something like that, get off of that. Get off of it right away for two reasons. One, it is going to help you build your own credit and not the credit of your parents. But two, that's going to jumpstart your financial discipline. It's going to suck to pay your own bill, of course, but it's going to help you in the long run. So a cell phone is one of them. Most of us already have it. Probably a lot of you are watching this video on your cell phone right now. Just make sure it's under your name so you can build that credit. Cell phone plans are very easy to get. They're not very stringent. So it's not something that you already have to have high amounts of credit to get. Pretty much anyone can get a cell phone, even if you got zero credit. So that's a very good starting point. Another good place to start would be with a cash secured or a prepaid card. So there's prepaid visas. A lot of people use Capital One. Capital One is a company that makes most of their business actually off of providing these prepaid cards. Usually they'll give you a prepaid card with a limit of maybe $300 to $1,000. You will then give them $300 or $1,000, and in return, they will give you a card that you can then, swipe or use at the store or wherever you want to use your card up to that limit. After you do that for a while, they will then go ahead and they will try to offer you a real credit card that is not prepaid. And that's where you can start to build some real credit on actual borrowed funds. So those two avenues are probably the go-to ones, being a cell phone plan that's under your name, and then a prepaid card, or maybe even a student card, if you can get one of those. And those will morph into a real credit card with real borrowed funds. The first pillar in terms of building and maintaining that credit, that's going to be your payments and how you actually use those cards or those loans or those borrowed funds. The main thing, obviously, is to make sure you are always making at least your minimum payments on all of your debt. So it doesn't matter at all about whether or not you pay off the full balance every month, although I do recommend that. What's most important is that you're making at least that minimum payment consistently on time every single month. These are the things that are going to help you build that credit history and show your credit worthiness when the institutions who provide you with those loans report all of your information to the credit bureaus like Equifax or TransUnion. Now, the other thing as well, if you do have utilities that you have to pay for, so say that maybe you are renting a place and you've got to pay for your own internet service, or you've got to pay for water, for example. Those things can be in your name while the house is in the landlord's name. Make sure you're always paying your utilities on time. So your water, heat, hydro, your internet, if you've got that, make sure that you're paying those as well. Even though they're not borrowed funds and it's not a credit card or a loan, those things are going to impact your credit score. You do owe those companies money, and they do have a set date that they need to be paid. So just like a credit card, make sure every month you are paying those off. Now, utilities or internet, it's not the same as a credit card. A credit card will have a minimum payment. Those utilities must be paid in full, so make sure you do that. And if you do not pay on time, the interest rate for not paying utilities or other items is actually very high as well. So make sure you do pay those. The second pillar of building credit is your utilization rate. So there will be some people who will argue that it's not that important, but I do think it is important. It's a metric and it's something that the institutions do look at. Now, is it the most important thing? No, it's not. But why wouldn't you do everything perfectly anyways? So, what this means is that you should try to keep the amount that you're borrowing from someone to 30% or less. If you've got a credit card with, say, a $10,000 limit, you should try your hardest not to go over that 3,000 mark. That would be 30% of your $10,000 limit. The reason for this is quite simple. When someone gives you a limit, they don't want you to exceed the limit for a reason. They're worried about loss in the event that you do not pay. If you keep the amount that you're borrowing to 30% or less, once again, those people are going to sleep easier at night. It makes it seem like you don't really need the funds, you only need a little bit of the money. So you're perceived to be in a better financial situation. People who obviously don't have any money, they will rack up the entire limit. And so that's where you want to separate yourself, right? There's people who are going to use the whole limit because they are not making good financial decisions. And then there's people who pay off every month. So you want to stay kind of, in that 30% range where you don't use too much. And that would be your utilization rate. It is important. If people try to tell you it's not important, then one, that's just not true. And two, if you're using more than 30% of the limit that's given to you, you're probably not making some good decisions. So keep that in mind. If for whatever reason, though, you do find yourself in a position where you do need more credit, there are ways around this, okay? So if you've got one credit card with a $10,000 limit and you want to keep your utilization rate at 30% or less, you can always get a secondary credit card. So maybe you would be smart about this and get one credit card that gives you rewards for gasoline purchases. And you can have another credit card that gives you rewards for grocery purchases. Now, you can use both of those cards. If they both have a $10,000 limit, you now have access to $6,000 while still staying within your 30% utilization rate. And of course, you get the benefit of two different cards, which may have offsetting benefits to you. In that example, one would be better for buying gasoline, one would be better for buying groceries, and that can benefit you as well. So use those things to your advantage. In the future, I will post a video on the differences between some Canadian credit cards and which ones I think are best. But for the time being, let's continue to focus on building that credit. Okay, pillar number 3, probably the most important one, to be honest with you, is your credit mix, which is the different types of lending products that you have, and more importantly, the age of your history. So it's very important to not close old accounts, okay? People want to see that history. They want to be able to see as much data as they can. So a landlord would want to see that, okay, 10 years ago, they had this product and they paid it off. And then 8 years ago, they financed a car and now it's paid off. They want to see all of these things because it leaves a nice track record. And if someone's got a track record that goes back 10 years, that's obviously a lot more consistent and it paints a better picture than someone who's only got a credit history of 2 years. There's a lot more data in a 10-year period than a 2-year period. So make sure you're not closing new accounts and getting new ones and closing them all the time, right? You want to really have the age of your history continue to go because it shows who you are and where you've been, and that's important. Now, with regards to the mix of your lending products, the more different types of lending products you have, the better that's going to be for you as well. So if you only have a credit card, it's going to build some credit, but you'll build credit faster and you'll get to a higher credit score sooner if you have a credit card and then you've got a vehicle loan and you've also got a mortgage or a line of credit. If you've got different lending products that you're paying off on a consistent basis, that's going to show lenders that, hey, you understand how it works. You can easily and effectively use a credit card and a line of credit while still paying off your auto loan and keeping your house. So the more products that you have that you can continue to form good habits and pay off consistently, that's really going to boost your credit and that's going to maintain it at the highest peak that it can be at. The last pillar is applications. Okay. So some people will go complete Rambo mode and they'll start applying for, this credit card and that plan and this loan and that auto loan. And let's get, my son a car. So we'll get another auto loan. Don't do any of that. Okay. You need to space out your lending products. So it's fine to get all of those lending products. It's fine to have them. I've got 2 credit cards, a line of credit, mortgages. I've got an auto loan. It's fine to have them all, but not apply all at once. Every time you do an application for a credit product, it does temporarily reduce your credit score. When they see people apply for multiple different loans or credit products in a short period of time, that signifies that that person needs money now and they can't afford to continue their lifestyle that they have. Most people are fine just with a credit card or a line of credit. And if you need more than one within a short period of time, it's a red flag. So do yourself a favor, apply for one product, make some good habits at paying it off. I would say wait at least 3 months before you apply to anything else. Probably better if you wait for 6 months. But definitely leave some wiggle room there. Don't just start go applying to anything that you can just because now you think you have credit. More importantly than that is you probably don't need it all. If you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you shouldn't need all of that credit anyways. And the more credit someone has, the more trouble you can get yourself in. So just be wary of that. So you might be wondering by now, how can you check your credit score? How can you keep tabs on where you're at and if you're making progress? Well, most of the financial institutions or banks in Canada now, they do have free credit reports that you can pull from your online banking. So that's personally what I do. It doesn't cost any money. You just sign into your online banking there and select your credit report. They are a little bit delayed, but quite honestly, you don't need up-to-date information anyways, but it's a free avenue for you to explore how your credit report and your credit history is either improving or not improving. So I would go through that route. Last but not least, just make sure you have patience, okay? All good things take time. Building credit does take time. There's a lot of tips in this video that can help you well on your way, but you have to have patience. Once again, please do not apply for many different applications within a short period of time. Don't get frustrated if your credit is not going up as fast as you thought it would be. All you have to do is make your payments at least that minimum payment and try to do more every single month across all accounts, and you'll be just fine. I hope you've enjoyed this video on how you can build and maintain a high credit score. And tying in with that, my next video is going to be about financing cars and should you do it or not. If you like what you've learned in this video and you want some more no BS Canadian finance tips, smash the Snackscribe button and I'll see you next time. Thanks.